After 14 years, we have a new Final Destination film. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about Final Destination Bloodlines, and give me that point of reference. What's your kind of take on the Final Destination franchise in general? Are you new to it? Have you been watching for 20 years? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and let's get started. And when it comes to the Final Destination franchise, I feel like I enjoy the franchise in general more than any one individual film. And what I mean by that is that there's like two great ideas in the middle of this franchise. One is the concept that people cheated death and now death is hunting them down. It's just a different type of horror villain that's more ominous and inherently builds this sense of dread into the franchise. The other one is the idea of these cause and effect Rube Goldberg machine type kills where death contrives a scenario of unlikely small little inconveniences that kind of turn deadly. Two great ideas, one franchise, but when I look at each of the original 5 films, there's not one of them that I'm like, man, that is a great movie just in and of itself. For me personally, as someone that doesn't have a lot of nostalgia for the original run of films, I don't remember when I first watched the original or anything like that, Bloodlines is my favorite movie in the franchise. That I feel like it's the only sequel that does something fresh and new with the concept. Now, you still have death pursuing people that it feels, lives that it feels it's owed. You still have the cause and effect deaths. You still have the same rules. But with this movie, it kind of takes the concept of the premonition and cheating death and plays it on a grander scale with a grander timeline, thus kind of having this trickle down where you're extrapolating things and what would death do in that situation and how would it respond to certain things if children were born and what would it do with that? And that's just interesting to me. It's actually expanding the lore on this bigger and grander scale and making it more interesting. Along those same lines, just as a film, it feels like the scope and size is bigger. And some of that is just built into the premise of what if death was hunting down an entire bloodline and we're covering years are taking place. But even just with the intro sequence where you're kind of introducing this world, we're seeing the past, it involves kind of this big gigantic building that's unusual looking. There's just a larger scale to the film on that level. Of course, when it comes to Final Destination, one of the things you care about the most are the kills and the deaths. And having rewatched all of them within the last month, this one to me, I think, had the most wince-inducing deaths. It gets back to the let's slowly introduce a series of little things, series of dangers, and you're not quite sure exactly how it's going to come together. But it also does have kind of the shock value gore. So it kind of combines the thrills of the first 2 movies with the gore of the later movies, but just does a really nice job of introducing an environment in each of the little dangers that people could encounter along the way. And it just kind of had a wit to it, where in certain ones, people are going to die, but it also kind of plays with the fact that you don't know who's going to die next. And so certain times there's fake out sequences that really mess with you while making you really squirm and uncomfortable. There's sequences where it kind of sets some things up where you think maybe this will happen, maybe this will happen, and it plays out completely different than you're expecting. It just kind of has that's a little bit more thought is put into the way the scenarios play out, how the audience will react to it, what will be assumed. So as an audience member, you're trying to piece together who's next, how's it going to play out, which of these little dangers, which of these things will actually matter. There's like a mystery to it with red herrings and everything, both in the film in general as you watch it, but also in the individual sequences as you're piecing it together, is it just like a better crafted version than most of the movies in this franchise. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. Make this your best season yet with 2-minute nutritious meals from Factor. We're heading into the summer. I want to go outside and have fun with my kids. I don't want to spend my time in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. That's where Factor is here to help. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. Perfect for any active lifestyle. It's easy to savor more this spring or summer. Factor meals pack in flavor with none of the fuss. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Just got back from the gym. We've got queso fundido and ground beef and cauliflower rice, all with over 40 grams of protein. Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. I like to start my day with their protein shakes, once again, because I'm a high-protein kind of guy. Get started at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50off and use code SeanChandler50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code SeanChandler50off at factormeals.com/SeanChandler50off for 50% off plus free shipping. And then one of the other big things with the movie that kind of elevates it for me, or probably for me is the reason that I'd say that it's very likely my favorite, is built into it, you're designed to actually care about the characters. There's a trope in horror movies of past where they intentionally make characters deeply unlikable or annoying. And so when they die, you don't care. And so the concept of this movie is it's about a broken family that has mystery in their past and of everything that's going on. And so you're invested in the journey of the family coming together, working together to try and save their bloodline from everything that's kind of taking place. And so you're invested in them, you care about them. And even when it comes to the family, there's little twists, turns, and way that it's subversive in a good way that adds to the sense that like they really cared about the script and the rules and how that would play out in a family and what would draw emotions out, make you like very much paying attention to the family and their ties to one another. And also, it can be really funny. The franchise, as it went along, leaned much more into humor, and it like just leans into just these outrageous kills and schlock value and goofy, and try to get laughs with gore, which kind of turned it into a live-action itchy and scratchy cartoon. And there's some of that in this movie, but it's not as goofy as some of the other ones. And it's much more of just character interactions, setting things up properly, so you care about what's happening, and so it just kind of it does something unexpected that makes you laugh. Without wanting to say too much, I have never been in a theater where an audience cheered so loud over a kid dying before. Make of that what you will, but there's just some, when it does violent humor, it actually feels like there was a setup and a payoff. Like I said, it's that wit is the reason that this one was kind of elevated a little bit more. And the final thing to kind of talk about is that, this is our, Tony Todd's final appearance. I believe it's his final movie. The way that he's able to tie into the plot in light of the mythology that's established, his history with the franchise, and then even with the knowledge that he's passed since this movie was made, it's like shockingly poignant for a Final Destination movie. In this context, with the lines that he's delivering, it's like someone saying goodbye to their audience. So when you put all those pieces together, it delivered kind of everything that I want from a Final Destination movie. But for me, as someone that isn't specifically emotionally connected to any of the previous movies, it just did a better job of it. It was a better individual package than any of the previous movies had been for me before. because it had the wit of the original film. It had the clever kills and the intricate details setting things up. You cared about the characters who were more emotionally invested. It was funny, but also could be poignant. When you have all those ingredients, for me, that adds up to the best movie in the franchise. A few more things to talk about, so let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. Really, I just need to answer one question here, and it's a question many people have asked me since I indicated I'd gone to go see this movie. Which Final Destination movies do you need to watch to understand Bloodlines? Good news, it is essentially an entirely standalone movie. And if you're familiar with the franchise, that's generally speaking how this franchise works, that they're almost all designed to just kind of stand on their own with little ties to the other movies. And that's the case here too. This can be your on-ramp, and it doesn't really spoil anything for other movies or give anything away. It has references to the other movies, Flight 180, but the only place where there's more significantly more weight, if you have seen the previous movies, is Tony Todd's character. But once again, if you're familiar with the franchise, you know that he's always just kind of this, cameo appearance character kind of giving some information. And so it's not like you need to in any way have seen the previous movies to appreciate his appearance. It's even designed in this movie for it to have weight no matter what. And of course, as a legacy performance, as a kind of a send-off for him, it works no matter what. It's very well constructed to be a great on-ramp for a new person, but have little mentions and things that tie it together if you have seen the others. But feel free to watch this as your first Final Destination movie. It is a great on-ramp. From there, let's move on to the bad. And when it comes to the negative, honestly, there weren't really all that many things about the movie that really bothered me. You can make the greatest Final Destination movie of all time, but for what it's trying to do, this is probably never going to be a movie that I'm going to give like an A+, 10 out of 10 is the greatest thing ever, because it's just not aiming to be that. It's just trying to be a fun, clever film, and that's what this is. If I was to kind of nitpick the things about it that kind of bothered me, there's a whole section about, this isn't really spoilers too much, but the idea of there's a person in it that tries to shelter themselves from death. And much like in the first movie with Devon Sawa's character, except if you play that out a little bit longer. And when you walk up to their fortress, it looks like a death trap. And if you've seen the franchise, your first thought immediately would be, why would any of that ward off death? That it makes for a nice cinematic image, and it plays into some plot stuff kind of well, but it also doesn't make any sense in light of what the person is trying to do. There are a few times in it where it kind of leans into the same scenes that are in every one of these movies, where characters are like, what are you talking about? I don't notice a pattern here. Nothing strange here at all. Where there's overwhelming evidence of something peculiar happening. And in order for the movie to move, to progress forward and people die with it, they just have to be obtuse. But everyone goes, what? You're just crazy. And they write off something that they probably should pay some amount of attention to. There's all sorts of points in time where, in order for, of course, terrible things to happen, you have to have a character choose to step into a more dangerous place. There's parts where people flippantly experiment and try things where you're like, wait a minute, even if you wanted to try that, you'd put more thought into it before you would just hop in to do this crazy, insane thing. Just those little things that are the compromises you need to make. Do you want a Final Destination movie? Those are the compromises, and they're in this movie as well. But in general, as I've repeatedly said, to me, this is the Final Destination movie that's the best package all overall, that really captures the things I enjoy about the franchise, bringing in some emotion that you don't normally get, being funny without undercutting the tension, and delivering the shock, the wince-inducing, the squirm-inducing kills that you enjoy that also feel really clever. For me, this was a winner. Overall, it's a B+ on the entertainment scale. It's an 8 out of 10. And see it in the theater. If you like these movies, Watch this in a packed theater where everyone in the room is going to go, whoa! Every time this stuff happens, you will have an absolute blast. Come back this weekend. We'll have a ranking where I'll share my thoughts on all of the different movies and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.